Hello YouTube. Today I want to describe several fascinating discoveries made by Russian scientists recently, because some of them relate to my research. The others do not, but are very interesting to me. I also want to mention one event that took place in Siberia, an amazing place. And I want to delve into ideas of a British genius of modern science who visited Russia not that long ago. But I do want to start with that event in Siberia. It's about a mysterious object captured in the sky over the Irkutsk region. A bright trace in the sky, possibly from a meteor, was captured on the evening of December 28, 2020, in the north of the Irkutsk region in Siberia. According to an eyewitness, the red glowing object flew by in just a few seconds, and the trace of it remained for about a minute. Pavel Nikiforov, director of the Irkutsk Planetarium and chairman of the Irkutsk Regional Astronomical Society, appealed to all who witnessed the phenomenon with a request to leave a report on the website of the International Meteor Organization. Especially valuable if the eyewitness managed to capture it on camera. There is still no coherent explanation of what the object was, but judging by available information and the area where it happened, I think it to be a most interesting case. Now, let us look at the other new research in another event that took place in Siberia in 1908. Russian scientists have also given a new explanation for the Tunguska phenomenon. According to their calculations, in June of 1908, an iron asteroid from 100 to 200 meters in diameter passed through the Earth's atmosphere at a speed of about 20 kilometers per second, and did not fall on the surface of our planet, but continued to move in a near solar orbit. It caused a powerful aerodynamic pressure, a shock wave, as well as fires that covered a large area of eastern Siberia. Experts of the Federal Research Center Krasnoyarsk Scientific Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences, with the participation of colleagues from several Russian academic institutions and universities, presented a new explanation of the Tunguska phenomenon. By conducting simulations, the researchers showed that the destruction created by the Tunguska cosmic body could have been caused by a shock wave as the cosmic body passed through the Earth's atmosphere, but only if it was not made of ice, like comet nuclei, but of iron. Note the examples of large space bodies made of iron, and such examples are well known. For example, a nickel iron meteorite with the initial size of more than 50 meters, which fell 50,000 years ago, formed an Arizona crater with a diameter of 1200 and a depth of more than 200 meters. To test their theory and study in more detail the behavior of cosmic bodies passing through the Earth's atmosphere, physicists have created a model of the behavior of small asteroids of various compositions and sizes in the atmosphere. It considered the change in the trajectory of the space body depending on the aerodynamic drag, the angle and the speed of entry into the atmosphere, the properties of the body material and its passage through different layers of the atmosphere. Studying the Tunguska phenomenon, the researchers calculated the trajectories and behavior during the flight of cosmic bodies with a diameter of 50 to 100 meters, consisting of iron, ice, as well as rocks such as quartz and lunar soil. The model shows that the Tunguska body could not consist of rock or ice, since the low strength of this non-uniform material leads to the rapid destruction of such bodies in the atmosphere under conditions of colossal aerodynamic pressure. The simulation results show that the Tunguska explosion could have been caused by an iron asteroid with the most likely size of 100 to 200 meters and a mass that can exceed 3 million tons. It passed through the Earth's atmosphere on a trajectory with a minimum flight altitude of 10 to 15 kilometers and a speed of about 20 kilometers per second. Then it continued its movement around the Sun, losing about half of its initial mass but maintaining its integrity. Such an asteroid could create a shock wave that could cause trees to fall in an area significantly exceeding 1,500 square kilometers, and at the same time not leave any significant fragments on the Earth's surface. The main contribution to the destruction was made by the spherical component of the shock wave, which is also characteristic of the explosion. Calculations have shown that its occurrence is associated with a sharp increase in the rate of evaporation of the asteroid material due to the strong heating of its surface during the passage of the lowest altitudes above the Earth, or the highest density of air. In the upper layers of the troposphere, that's at the altitude of about 10 kilometers, for a 200-meter body, evaporation can reach up to 500,000 tons per second. The resulting huge mass of high-temperature plasma expands very quickly in all directions, creating an explosion effect. This hypothesis allows us to explain another mystery of the Tunguska phenomenon, the fires that engulfed the area of the epicenter with an area of more than 160 square kilometers. For example, in the case of explaining the Tunguska phenomenon by the fall of a comet made of ice and evaporated high above the Earth, the origin of the fires is unclear. In this case, the cause of the fires is associated with the effect of high-intensity light radiation generated by the head of a bolide with a surface temperature of more than 10,000 degrees at the minimum flight altitude. At the same time, on the Earth's surface, combustible materials absorbing the optical radiation of the bolide manage to heat up to the ignition temperature in the estimated time of flight over the epicenter of the order of 1 to 1.5 seconds. But top Russian scientist Alexei Poniatov disagrees. The weak point of this hypothesis is the discrepancy between the eyewitness accounts. Such a large bolide should have been visible at sufficiently high altitudes and therefore at large distances from the epicenter, including flying away from the epicenter. However, as far as he knows, there are no reports of this. Hopefully, in the future, the authors of this hypothesis will be able to specify the size of the territory from which it is possible to observe such a bolide. Perhaps this will limit the maximum mass of the bolide. Now, I presented my views on the Tunguska phenomenon or event in my books and videos, but will present to you other points of view, like this one. The metal asteroid hypothesis is very interesting. There is an unusual angle that those who seriously study the Tunguska phenomenon will recognize. Now, I want to talk about a very interesting discovery in Russia from the world of medicine. Researchers from the Pacific Institute of Bioorganic Chemistry in Vladivostok, together with colleagues from the branch of the Institute of Bioorganic Chemistry, found valuable substances in sea anemones to create a new generation of painkillers. Sea anemones are producers of a huge variety of biologically active peptides that can be used in pharmacology. Russian scientists have discovered a peptide that is able to deal with the pain. These substances are not addictive and interact with ion channels that are involved in pain transmission. Tests of the detected compounds on animals already show positive results. One of the substances found can block pain receptor for a day. I turn your attention to the immense power of our oceans and tremendous potentials as yet undiscovered for our science in all its aspects in our oceans. This was predicted by science fiction writers Jules Verne and Alexander Belyaev in the USSR, and modern science discoveries confirm it. I also eagerly await news of discoveries from the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench. It is very cold and highly pressurized there. Its floor features hydrothermal hot water vents formed by spreading tectonic plates, which release hydrogen sulfide and other minerals, which are consumed by the biophilic bacteria, which are then consumed by other microorganisms, and which in turn consumed by fish, and so forth. And the life there does not depend on the sun. But I do not believe we will find out very much, as major world powers eagerly are engaged in the research there and do not want to make the information public, because, as I said in my video about Mariana Trench, something is going on there. But the oceans contain materials that could prolong our lifespan. Okay, but now I want to get a bit of information from the Russian north. A strain of the bacterium Pseudoalteromonas arctica has been produced within the walls of the Arctic Research and Design Center for Offshore Development. In Russia, it can decompose oil and petroleum products in the temperature range from plus 20 to minus 2.5 Celsius. This is great for the world of ecology, and I hope this discovery gets the proper attention, as it should. Now, here is a discovery that is also of significance to me, because, as my audience may know, I have researched ancient mysterious societies of Amazons, women warriors of Eurasia. Well, in 2020, scientists from the Laboratory of Historical Genetics of the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology, or MIPT, found out that the teenager whose remains were found in the late 1980s in one of the Scythian burial grounds on the banks of the Yenisei River actually was a girl. Since a chisel, bow, quiver, and arrows were found near the mummy of a teenager, archaeologists have long believed that it was a boy who was being trained to become a warrior. Now the MIPT staff and colleagues from the Institute of Material Culture of the Russian Academy of Sciences have examined this find. Scientists were able to extract DNA from the fragments of the mummy, and after a complex of careful studies, it became clear that we're talking about the remains of a young girl who apparently grew up and was brought up as a young warrior. According to the scientists, the results of their work will allow us to take a new look at the culture and life of the Scythian tribes and learn more about the history of mankind, or humankind. The researchers recall that in many myths about that era, in particular from Herodotus, there are references to the Amazons, a tribe of female warriors living in the west on the coast of the Azov and Black Seas. But until recently, there was no evidence of such a phenomenon among the Siberian Scythians. Now, my research, which you can see in my video about Eurasian Amazons, describes their societies in Central Asia, ancient Russia, Bohemia, and Ukraine. I will make more videos based on the collected materials I compiled, and of course, it will not be solely those territories. It's a fascinating subject, and takes us to the time immemorial and the world that existed under conditions we cannot imagine today. Now, let's talk about something else. Those who watched my video about the UFOs over Russian nuclear facilities should recognize this place. At the end of November 2020, Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin during a working visit to the Dubna near Moscow, launched the work of the superconducting booster accelerator, which has no analogues in the world and is the first stage of the NICA complex, a mega scientific project of the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research. The booster will accelerate the heavy ion beams and then transfer them to another accelerator, the nucleotron, which will then direct the beams into the ring of the NICA collider. There they will collide at near light speeds. The introduction of the NICA complex booster gives scientists access to the latest technologies. In particular, the use of beams from this installation will allow treating severe oncological diseases, solving problem of medical physiology when planning and conducting long-term space expeditions, will result in testing microelectronics for space satellites and in many other areas. So something definitely attracts ubiquitous UFOs to Dubna. And in my books, I presented cases and talked about them in lectures and videos, especially the strange visitation back in the Soviet times. But it continues. UFOs keep coming to the area. Now back to Siberia and another discovery very important to medical science. Novosibirsk scientists surprised the world with colored grains. In the Siberian fields, purple and black wheat and blue barley began to flourish. After collecting the first experimental crop, the specialists of the Institute of Cytology and Genetics of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences, as well as the Vavilov All-Russian Institute of Crop Production, began to study the useful properties of grains and have already made several scientific discoveries, such as color versus dementia. The World Health Organization estimates that more than 35 million people worldwide suffer from dementia caused by neurodegenerative disorders. These are mostly elderly people. Most often, doctors diagnose them with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases. Despite the well-developed medicine, both diseases currently remain incurable. Scientists around the world are working to find a new, effective therapy that can stop the development of the disease and even reverse this process. But preventing the disease has always been the best way to treat it. Therefore, today special attention is paid to functional nutrition, more precisely to dietary therapy. Well, they grow a special kind of wheat in Siberia. Experts noted that purple grains contain a high content of water-soluble plant pigments, in scientific terms, anthocyanins. And what they are useful for, help to find out. Well, the help came from laboratory mice. Mice were put on an unusual diet. Detailed animals suffering from Alzheimer's disease were brought to the laboratory. More mice with Parkinson's disease were introduced, which were specially bred in transgenic way to study this disease. The sick animals were divided into two groups. One was fed with a grain of ordinary gold-colored wheat, and the other purple with an increased content of anthocyanins. Well, the third team of rodents is the usual healthy mice. They were prescribed a standard feed-based diet. For several months, the rodent did not just eat grain and science, but helped make this memory. A real discovery. The condition of the test suggests of the test subjects was carefully monitored, and all the indicators were recorded in order to compare them in the future. The grain diet in both groups led to some weight loss, but within the normal range, and a positive effect on the balance of cholesterol in the body. But Russian scientists were more interested in the effect on cognitive abilities, and here the benefits of anthocyanin wheat were obvious. Such conclusions were made after a series of behavioral experiments, which involved specialists from another institute, physiology and fundamental medicine. Animals on the diet with anthocyanin and purple wheat have been shown to improve the working of the spatial memory. It is precisely this type of memory that suffers one of the first during the disease. In mice, the decline in learning ability was also inhibited. Some biochemical processes in the brain were improved, and in other words, the processes of neuronal repair were activated. The institute staff commented on the experiment. Thus, it became clear that purple wheat, if used as part of a therapeutic diet, can have a positive effect on patients suffering from Parkinson's and Alzheimer's diseases. Scientists believe that colored ears can be used in agriculture, medicine, and the chemical industry. Chemists are very interested in how to use the pigments of our plants, especially melanin. These pigments have important properties. They absorb. They're electron conductors. For example, they try to use sunflower husk as an adsorbent, according to the Russian scientist Olesya Shoeva. Several new varieties of such cereals will appear in the experimental fields with the onset of the season. The authors of the color crop are ready to transfer seed samples to the Ministry of Agriculture for cultivation on a more global scale. Perhaps soon, blue porridge for breakfast or gray-black wheat buns for lunch will become the norm for the inhabitants of Siberia. And now, another important discovery from Siberia, from the shores of the ever-mysterious Lake Baikal, of which I talk in my lectures, books, and videos. Now, I talk of the gigantic alien swimmers, UFOs, eerie fogs, but now let's look at wasps. A scientific discovery, only a couple millimeters in size. Very interesting findings were collected during the summer 2020 expedition on the island in that area by the senior research fellow of the Zoological Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Ekaterina Tselik, from St. Petersburg. When she arrived back to her hometown, the so-called northern capital, looking into the microscope, the scientist was amazed. It's a brand new species. She shared the news with her colleagues. It took a lot of time to study them. Now, with 100% confidence, the Russian woman scientist can say that she made a scientific discovery. Ekaterina Tselik on the island of Alkhon found a new genus of Turamalids parasitic insects used to control pests of agricultural and forestry. The insects we study are very small, just a couple of millimeters. Their study is quite a painstaking task. Ekaterina Tselik told the press service of the Federal State Budgetary Institute, reserved Baikal region, on the territory of which the materials were collected. In simple terms, these are parasitic wasps. Their larvae develop on or in the larvae of other insects, leading the hosts to death. Therefore, chalcide can be used instead of pesticides against other insect pests. Scientists have described the new genus of wasps. Subsequently, they were named Alkhon, with the type species Alkhon Yermak, in honor of the conqueror of Siberia, the Kazakh ataman or warlord Yermak. Ekaterina Tselik informed everyone about her discovery, writing a couple of articles that have been already published by scientific journals. The scientist does not plan to stop in her study of Siberia. Who knows how many more discoveries can be made there. Going to eastern Siberia on an expedition, she and her colleagues certainly expected to find unusual finds, but the fact that a new genus was discovered certainly pleased them. The scientist shared with the employees of the national park. She expects to continue working on these shores in the new year of 2021. And I expect more discoveries will be made in this most unique body of water, incomparable to any other on our planet, because it contains something we may not yet comprehend, but most likely those who wrote Mahabharata in ancient Sanskrit did comprehend. I described the connection in my research of the so-called swimmers, and I see here glimpses of the biological, non-technological civilization from the past, but we'll talk about it later. Some of the ideas presented by Russian scientists many years ago. Now let's gaze into outer space and international cooperation. Several scientific papers that have appeared recently are encouraging. First, from the conclusions drawn by their authors, it follows in this fabric of space-time there really are tunnels, the so-called wormholes, which connect the shortest paths to the points of the universe, distant from each other for huge distances. Secondly, these tunnels are passable. They can be penetrated, and it would be possible to get to other galaxies and return. And third, scientists seem to know how to look for entrances and exits to wormholes. All this gives hope that the messengers of human civilization will sooner or later reach the other star systems, penetrating there to the so-called intra-world wormholes. And if you can find their interworld varieties, then you can find yourself in a neighboring universe or universes. Experts talking about wormholes suggest imagining the space in the form of a sheet of paper. Indicate on this sheet the points that are distant from each other, let's say 20 centimeters. Obviously, this distance will have to be overcome to get from one point to another. However, if you can bend the sheet, align the dots and puncture the paper, almost instantly be at the destination, getting there through the resulting hole. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, similar shortest paths can be found in the universe, on its scale, of course. And Einstein himself repeatedly hinted at such a miracle, solving the corresponding equations together with his student, mathematician Nathan Rosen. For this reason, the wormholes were respectfully called Einstein-Rosen bridges. But the fact that the bridges are actually really passable, theorists did not strongly believe. It was believed that a living organism is unlikely to withstand the gravitational overload, tidal forces that occur at the entrance to the hole. The doubts of Einstein and Rosen were recently dispelled by Juan Maldacena, a professor at the American Institute for Advanced Study, and his colleague Alexei Milekhin, a graduate of the Princeton University, who published a scientific paper under the unambiguous title Passable Wormholes for People, or Humanly Traversable Wormholes. Princeton scientists have calculated that in a hole with a mouth with a diameter of at least 1,500 kilometers, the overload will not be prohibitive, no more than 20 Gs. And then, for a fraction of a second, trained astronauts would survive. In 2020, Reinhard Hensel of the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics and Andrea Ghez of the University of California won the Nobel Prize in Physics after discovering a supermassive compact object at the center of the Milky Way, a black hole as they decided. The strange behavior of the stars there, 26,000 light years from Earth, allowed the scientists to assume this. The stars were mysteriously accelerating, as if they were under the influence of something very large and very massive. After analyzing the observed phenomena, Hensel and Ghez concluded that the anomalies are generated by a giant black hole the size of the solar system. The same supermassive object that, as scientists estimate, is 4 million times heavier than the Sun. It was named Sagittarius A. Not everyone, however, agreed with the Nobel laureates. From the article published by astrophysicist Dechang Dai from the University of Yangzhou in China and his colleague Dejan Stojkovic from the University of Buffalo, it follows: this very Sagittarius A may not be a black hole, but is a wormhole. On neighboring stars, it is affected by gravity, which passes through from the massive objects located on the other side of the hole. Well, Dai and Stojkovic are echoed by Paolo Salucci, a physicist of the International School of Advanced Studies in Trieste, Italy, and his colleagues from India and the United States. In their article published in the journal Annals of Physics, they also claim that in the center of the Milky Way there is not a black hole but a wormhole that spontaneously arose once because of certain energy and quantum fluctuations. From it begins space-time tunnel, at least an intra-world tunnel, or even interworld one. In the sense of holes, in the opinion of Saluccia, perspective on other galaxies. In each, as he believes, there should be at least one hole. A way to distinguish a wormhole from a black hole was recently proposed by Sergei Krasnikov, a senior researcher at the Laboratory of the Stellar Physics at the Pulkovo Observatory in Russia, and his colleagues. From their article, it follows that a substance that moves rapidly through the tunnel must generate characteristic gamma radiation. It will also give it a hole, since the radiation flow from it is much more powerful than that which passes through from a black hole. It looks like a sphere from the outside, not a jet. And the spectrum is different. Alexander Kirillov and Yelena Savelova, scientists from the Bauman Moscow State Technical University, suspect that the strange radio circles also arise as a result of the activity of space-time tunnels, and therefore they point to them. Some rings brightly glowing at the edges first appeared in the images obtained in 2019 in the process of compiling the evolutionary map of the universe. Objects of previously unknown nature were highlighted by the giant Australian radio telescope Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder involved in the work. Calling the rings strange, the astronomers expressed their bewilderment at what they saw, reporting it in the journal Nature Astronomy. So far, 4 strange radio circles have been found, but in fact, according to the estimates of observers, there are much more of them, at least 1,000, only in the foreseeable space. According to the hypothesis of Russian scientists, the giant ring structures, which remained mysterious to the astronomers who discovered them, can be generated by the strongest magnetic fields possessed by wormholes. If this is indeed the case, then the universe is pitted with them, tunnels to which you can travel to distant places. Search, as they say, and you will find it. It is possible that someday a hole of a suitable size will be artificially made. Physicist Kip Thorne, who gave scientific verisimilitude to the acclaimed film Interstellar, whose characters found a wormhole in the area of Saturn. Well, since 1988, he has said Einstein-Rosen bridges can be built with the help of some negative energy, and many physicists support it, but they do not yet have any ideas about how to practically get this very negative energy. I recall how my late Russian friend Vadim Chernobrov, scientist and paranormal explorer, was fascinated with Kip Thorne's ideas. Vadim was involved in time machine experiments in Russia, in the Moscow Institute of Aviation and other places. Years ago, I tried to put the two scientists in touch with each other. Someday I will describe Vadim's experiments. If we do not find wormholes or make them ourselves, we will never see other worlds. It would take too long to reach them, even on the most seemingly fast starships. And this brings us to the winner of the Nobel Prize in Physics, Roger Penrose, who said, while in Russia, not that long ago, that to hear the aliens, we must learn to manipulate black holes. He visited Russia in 2013, and before that in 1980 he visited the USSR. Both times he amazed his colleagues and audiences. On October 6, 2020, at the age of 89, the British scientist Roger Penrose was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. In 2013, he visited Moscow with lectures, where his speech caused a great stir. In addition to Penrose, the prize for the study of black holes was awarded to the people I already mentioned, German Reinhard Hansel and American Andrea Ghez, who, as I said a few minutes ago, discovered a supermassive object in the center of our home galaxy. Penrose was in Russia at the invitation of the Russian scientist, and at that time the future Nobel Prize winner in physics was able to talk to the correspondents of the Russian newspaper Komsomolskaya Pravda. I often mention information from that newspaper in my videos. Well, Sir Roger Penrose is famous all over the world because he explained the structure of the universe from a mathematical point of view. He is emeritus professor at the Mathematical Institute of the University of Oxford, emeritus fellow at the Wadham College, and winner of the Wolf Prize in Physics. And he has made profound contributions across a broad range of scientific disciplines. His work encompasses geometry, black hole singularities, the unification of quantum mechanics and gravity, the structure of space-time, and the origin of our universe. The five-fold symmetry, initially thought impossible or a mathematical curiosity, has now been found in nature. In 1989, Penrose wrote The Emperor's New Mind, which challenged the premise that consciousness is computation and proposes we need new physics to understand it. He was persuaded to come to Russia by Dmitry Pavlov, director of the Research Institute of Hypercomplex Systems in Geometry and Physics, together with colleagues from the Bauman Moscow State Technical University. In the capital, Penrose lectured at the Polytechnic Museum, and he fascinated the audience by what they call casting fantastic spells. For example, I am squeezing infinity, or I am stretching the Big Bang, or quantum mechanics is crazy but it works because the universe is out of its mind, or our own consciousness is no less a mystery to us than dark matter or hidden mass. The Russian correspondent asked him the following: Sir Roger, have you found any anomalies in the universe? Yes, strange concentric circles in the picture of the microwave background, the so-called relic radiation, preserved since the formation of our universe. They are similar to the circles from the raindrops on a pond. The more circles, the less noticeable they are. It seems that the waves on the surface are chaotic, but if you know what you are looking for, you can see these footprints. These are the gravitational traces of the collision of supermassive black holes that formed in the previous universe at the end of its existence. That is, before our planet was formed, as a result of the Big Bang. So, before the creation of our world, there was another one? Yes, one dies collapsing, the other, the subsequent, immediately arises. and this is evidenced by detected concentric circles. So there are a lot of universes, parallel universes as they're called. There are no parallel universes. These are consecutive ones. They occur after the Big Bangs. After the last was the birth of our universe, and we are with it. The expansion of the universe is often compared to an inflated balloon. The spots on the ball represent different galaxies. And then the balloon inflates and specks and galaxies fly apart. Will that not pop us? And the response is, after the size of the universe reaches its maximum, it will begin to shrink and eventually collapse to a point, experiences a kind of Big Bang on the contrary, or in another way, a big collapse. I am convinced that the history of the universe actually covers an infinite sequence of explosions and collapses, which turn into new explosions. It is quite possible that expansion and contraction are constant cycles of time, like the rising and falling of the chest of a sleeping giant. Are there any intermissions between explosions and collapses? Yes, during the transition from one state of the universe to another, it is a very sad era. At this time, all the black holes collapse. Small explosions occur here and there in the universe. And what becomes? Just void, empty? No, there is someone to be bored in this dull time. These are the most persistent and recalcitrant particles of any universe, photons and electrons. Moreover, I assume that there even comes a time when every particle loses its mass again. As a result, only massless particles remain. Why is there only 22% of dark matter in the universe and the rest is dark energy? There is indirect evidence that dark matter can decay. Therefore, it needs to be renewed, born anew each time. It doesn't have the strength to fill the universe. And here's what the British scientist, while in Russia, had to say about the soul and the brain. You have developed a quantum theory of consciousness. According to it, the carriers of consciousness are protein microtubules located inside the neurons of the brain, which accumulate and process information. And because of their structure, they are best suited to be carriers of quantum properties in the brain, because they can preserve quantum states for a long time. That is, they can work as quantum computers. And as I understand your explanation, when the heart stops supplying blood to the brains, the microtubules seem to be discharged, but the information stored in them is not destroyed, not lost, but goes into space. So according to your theory, there is a soul. It is difficult for me to give a technical definition of what a soul is. Many people believe that this is what appears when a person dies, and I need a scientific explanation. I believe that there is something that we do not yet understand from the point of view of modern science. And as for consciousness, I am sure that it is physiologically connected with the process occurring in the microtubules. In them, amazing effects occur that cannot be explained by classical mechanics. In a few years, there will be a big breakthrough in understanding the nature of consciousness. And then they will finally create artificial intelligence. Our thinking involves processes that cannot even be modeled using computational methods alone. After all, the work of the brain is mostly unconscious. That is why artificial intelligence, like human intelligence, is impossible. And now let's talk about aliens. You've studied the universe so well. Do you know where the aliens are hiding? Perhaps it is a wild guess. An intelligent civilization is very far away from us. I think that for the same life to be born on other planets, it must be preceded by the same sequence of events that we have. Why can't we pick up the signals of the similar intelligent beings? I think that we are not sufficiently developed to receive them and send our own to them. Maybe we should manipulate supermassive black holes. Maybe there are other ways to send such signals. To me, this is so interesting and reminds of the ideas of the great and mysterious person who might not have been human, Ivan Yefremov, and I have videos about him I'd like you to see, because he influenced my life and lives of many Soviet people. But anyway, this is what I wanted to present to you today. A mishmash or hodgepodge of information, but to me it has definite correlations to my research. From time to time I will take time and make similar videos, and hope you will find their content interesting to you as well, and will make you want to read more and explore more ideas. If you can support my research, I ask you that you please do, and I thank those who have. There are links in the description to this video, and I will bring you more interesting videos in the near future. Thank you.